You're on CYInterview.
I'm Chris Shandak. Featured columnist Jay Bilstein is with me today on CYInterview. We welcome back Las Vegas headliner, entertainment legend, and the host of the longest-running show on the Las Vegas Strip of Legends in Concert. The one and only Frank Marino is back with us. Frank, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
We're doing very well. So over the last year and a half, live entertainment was halted all around the world due to the coronavirus pandemic. How did it feel not to perform for so long?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I said, how did it feel not to perform for so long due to the coronavirus pandemic over the last year and a half?
For me, it was really weird because for 36 years I drove to the Strip every night, did my show, and had a routine, and all of a sudden, overnight, everything shut down, so it was really like a shock for me.
And then how did it feel to go back to performing when you stepped back on the stage at the Tropicana Hotel and Casino for Legends in Concert a few months back?
Well, I'll be honest, it was actually kind of the first time I ever had stage fright, if you want to call it that, because it had been so long since I did any kind of performing at all that, it's one of those things where, they say you just get back on the bike and you can ride again. Not so with entertainment. Things have changed, situations have changed, things that are funny have changed. So I had to really, navigate my way through that.
What did you do with all of that downtime?
Well, my whole house is spotlessly clean. The only thing left to do is vacuum the roof. But after that happened, I just did little projects. I mean, I just had to keep myself busy because even when I was working, even my free time then, I would have to, find little things to do. So I was really climbing the walls.
So, up to this point, I believe, now correct me if I'm wrong, but so when live entertainment stopped in March of 2020, I believe you had never stopped performing in Las Vegas since around the age of 18. Is that correct?
Yes, I was actually the longest-running headliner in Las Vegas, and like you said, I joined the longest-running show. So, I was just a child kid when I started. I couldn't even walk through the casino. I remember that when I first started.
So for those who are planning to come back to Las Vegas, besides seeing the glamorous wigs and gowns from the one and only Frank Marino, who else will they currently see at Legends in Concert?
Well, if they come now, they're going to see Tina Turner, Rod Stewart, and, of course, Elvis Presley. If they come anytime in September or further, they're going to see what they're calling Direct from London, which is going to be Elton John, George Michael, and Freddie Mercury, which is going to be another really exciting lineup, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Jay?
Frank, you said something very interesting. You talked about what's funny changed during the pandemic, and it's interesting because we live in an era that a lot of people in the media will call cancel culture.
Yep.
Does this entire notion of cancel culture and people online and commenting on Twitter and all this kind of thing, as somebody who deals in comedy and satire and so forth, has this given you any cause for pause?
Well, I think you just said it. Every joke comes from the root of satire, making fun of a situation that is exaggerated, So I had to be really careful. I could not come back and do a monologue without talking about politics or without talking about the virus. So I had to walk a really straight line, not to fall too much on one side or to the other side. So what I do is instead of offending anyone, I just offend everyone. I'm an equal opportunity offender. If it's political, I pick on both sides. I don't choose one. If it's the virus, of course, it's an extremely serious thing, and people had many, losses that should have never happened. It's a very sad situation. My heart's out for all of it. But, a lot of times people get over their grief with comedy. And I don't talk about the actual virus itself. I'll talk about situations. You know what I'm saying? I talk about, how difficult it was to get into Costco and stuff like that. It's never a direct about the virus joke.
Interesting. I had this flashback. I think it was the movie was in 1987, Full Metal Jacket, when there was Gunnery Sergeant Hartman, and he said he was much more specific, but he said he hated everybody equally. Mm-hmm. And then I said, my goodness, Frank Marino going after everyone equally. Could we ever imagine Frank Marino as Gunnery Sergeant Hartman in Full Metal Jacket? That could be quite interesting. Frank, how do you see the current state of Las Vegas, specifically in comparison to the aftermath of the last most trying time, which was the financial crisis of 2008-2009?
Well, I think everybody's coming back and had a big boom initially. But I think as it opens more and more, it's going to slow down a little bit because the second wave of virus, the Delta virus, is coming out. So depending on how people take that and you know, how many people get sick from it is going to determine what's going to happen next. They've already put the mask mandate back, so the audience has to wear masks, and anybody on stage not physically speaking or blowing into a wind instrument has to wear a mask as well.
Do you find it odd in any way looking out to an audience with a sea of masks on? Does it do anything to your timing or how you perform? Do you look out there and say, holy cow, now I can't see the facial expressions where before people would start to applaud or laugh, you'd start to see them crack a smile and you know you're on the right path? Has it affected any of that?
You know, that's probably the best question I've ever gotten, you know. Yes, because it has. You know, I look out into that audience, I see a sea of masks. You don't know if, well, first of all, when they're laughing and you're doing comedy, the response back is going to be delayed because of a mask, you know what I'm saying? Or it might be silenced if you're not a loud laugher, so you might think, you know, somebody's not laughing. Or they might be laughing at a joke, but their eyes look angry, so you think, oh, maybe I should go another direction. So it's extremely confusing to the performer, I would say.
So you don't have those cues, so I could imagine that generates even more tension when, you know, you're out there looking for the cues from the audience to build up momentum in a certain direction.
Exactly.
With that said, what's your outlook for the future? There's a lot of talk of New York-based investment firms putting money on the Strip and so forth. We've just had a new resort open. First one on the Strip, and gee whiz, it must be in more than 10 years. What do you see for the future in Las Vegas? In the relative near term, let's say the next couple of years, and then let's say 5 years after? Well,
I'm going to say this. If Delta doesn't put everybody back in reverse, meaning having to shut down again for a period of time, whatever, I think it'll just gradually grow. I think it's going to be slower than when we first opened, it was like a boom. But I think it's going to even out, and then I think slowly it'll come back, and it'll come back bigger than ever. If they don't flood the Strip with an excess of hotels, like I believe they did at one time, like in the late 90s, I think there were so many hotels that it outweighed the amount of people that could actually come to Vegas, so everything seemed slow. But if they do it in proportion to what the tourism is, I think it'll be great.
State and local governments across the United States, at least many of them, are suffering tremendously financially. They were suffering financially before COVID. I think they're suffering more now. I'm not going to get into the politics and how and why, but one thing we've started to see more than ever before is more gambling popping up around the country. In the long run, do you believe that it's Las Vegas's entertainment, Las Vegas's restaurant community, Las Vegas's premium shopping and resorts that in the long term will carry Las Vegas as opposed to gambling itself?
I think it's actually the opposite. I think those are all a nice chunk of what makes it, you know, work in Las Vegas, but I think it's the actual gambling that they need to, you know, concentrate on, and that's where their major money is going to come from. If you remember in the old days, an entertainer, and I've been here at that point, where you would get a huge salary to be in the show. It was actually a loss leader for them. They used it to get in the type of clientele they wanted. So the show that was there, you know, Frank Sinatra, Diana Ross, they would bring in high rollers, so Caesars would have them all the time. They would lose money and pay them outrageous amounts to be there because they're going to bring in a clientele that's going to gamble a lot of money. So now it's turned around the other way. So each hotel, instead of having one showroom, has 5. If there's a vacant closet, they'll put a showroom in it. And that being said, they saturate the market, and they charge you for every little thing. And corporate America came in and, in my opinion, ruined it totally for everybody. They squeezed every dime out of any person. I remember when I got here, the show was $6.95, and you got a prime rib dinner with it. $6.95 doesn't even carry the tax in our show right now. So that's how different everything has gone.
Would it be fair to say that if you dressed up as Samantha Stevens from Bewitched from that program, oh my God, it's more than half a century ago. Wow, time flies. Would you kind of do that little Samantha Stevens wiggle of the nose and click us back into the 1980s prior to the corporate era?
Yes, in a heartbeat, I would go back to the 1980s before the corporations took over. And, you know, they all come in, they all think they have the next greatest idea, and they don't. So and it goes full circle. I've seen it be at a great place. I saw it get ruined. I saw them try to bring it back, and then it changes again. So every time they have an idea, it ends up fizzling, and they go back to what originally happened. Then they get another idea, and it goes back to what happened. So I think just stick with what's tried and true. The reason it worked in the first place was because it worked. Stop trying to put a round circle in a square peg.
Well, there you go. Chris?
Frank, before we close, earlier this year, your longtime friend and a past CY interview guest, Mary Wilson, passed away. What would you like to say about your memories of her?
Well, to tell you the truth, that I'm still in shock over it. You know, I was just talking about Diana Ross. So Mary Wilson, part of the Supremes like that, called me up like 3 days earlier, and she was telling me, I sent you a Christmas gift 3 times. Why does it keep coming back? Do I have the wrong address? And she had my address instead of 1 word as 2 words. So we straightened that out, and I was talking to her about going to lunch, and she said to me, yes, let's do it in a few weeks because I have to get into this doctor's appointment. Never went into what the problem was. It wasn't my business. But I was like, of course, you're Mary Wilson. You know, what don't you have a concierge doctor? So I gave her the name of my concierge doctor because I can't believe she actually had to wait. So that being said, she must have sent the package out that night because 3 days later, the package comes in the mail. And when my partner Alex was on Facebook writing, you know, a thank you note to her, the next thing I know, that he wakes me up and he says Mary Wilson passed away because all of a sudden it was all over the web. And I got to tell you, I was in shock that day, and it still hasn't gone away. I'm still in shock. It's a great loss. She was a great friend, and it was a difficult time.
What a story.
Mm-hmm.
Jay?
Well, it's really been a pleasure speaking with you. I've watched you and laughed along with everything you've done over the years, and you are one of the principal reasons why Las Vegas is Las Vegas today, and you continue on a tradition that's not a tradition of corporate Las Vegas, but a tradition of great Las Vegas from the golden years, and hopefully those golden years will continue.
Well, thank you very much, and yes, please, everybody, come watch me walk that straight and narrow line as I navigate my way through the comedy future.
Not an easy thing to do in high heels.
Not an easy thing at all.
You can see Frank Marino at Legends in Concert at the Tropicana Hotel and Casino weekly. So for Las Vegas headliner, entertainment legend Frank Marino, featured columnist Jay Billstein, and CY Interview, I'm Christian.